You're fired, you useless bum with zero sales. I'm a craftsman at a popular local pastry and cake shop. The former owner took me under his wing, but that owner suddenly disappeared. Then the second-gen owner took over. The new boss and the former owner's wife have always had it out for me. They blame me for all the poor sales, and I'm kicked out of the shop I've worked at for years. What's more, they demand, you trained here, so we can't risk our flavors getting out. Signed this agreement not to make pastries anymore, but I got headhunted by the owner of a rival company and landed a new job. The rival company boldly set up shop 2 doors down from my old workplace, Butterfly Cottage. The next month, wouldn't you know it, that same boss who'd been such a pain comes crying, please come back, to which I replied, can you pay me 20 times more? Here's what happened next. My name's Tom. I'm a 45-year-old pastry chef. I work at Butterfly Cottage, a long-established pastry and cake shop beloved in this area for years. Truth is, I grew up at Butterfly Cottage. My mom was a stay-in housekeeper there. From what I heard later, it was about 40 years ago. My mom, with little old me in tow and nowhere to go, happened to pass by this shop. She was what you'd call a single mother. I'm sure there was a lot going on, but Mom never told me anything about it, before or since. Anyway, it was the former owner who called out to my mom in that state. If you're in trouble, why don't you come help us out? With Bob's invitation, Mom decided to stay at Butterfly Cottage. She was put in charge of the kitchen as a stay-in housekeeper. It's just like Bob to reach out to a woman in trouble with a kid. Mom was hardworking and thorough, so the folks at Butterfly Cottage took a liking to her right away. She handled all sorts of small jobs, from cleaning in the morning to prepping ingredients. So, I've been interested in the world of pastry and cake since I can remember. Bob was a pastry chef with great taste. Apparently, the owner of Spring Cottage, the established pastry and cake shop where he worked when he was young, really liked him. When he decided to strike out on his own, the owner asked him, please marry my daughter, Sarah. He got married and opened his own shop, Butterfly Cottage. They didn't have kids for a long time after that, but finally had a son named Jack. Butterfly Cottage's black sesame cracklin' top cream puffs and pastry snails with basil pesto, grana padano, and pine nuts were Bob's creations. The black sesame cream puffs is a fragrant treat made with plenty of black sesame paste, while the basil pesto flavored puff pastry snails are punctuated with crunchy pine nuts and sprinkled with grana padano for extra savoriness. They've been hugely popular since Butterfly Cottage opened, with orders coming in non-stop. During busy times, even little old me would carry boxes of ingredients or deliver candies around the neighborhood. Jack, 5 years younger than me, wasn't interested in the family business. He preferred playing video games, which I guess you could say is just kids being kids. As for me, I started learning how to make candies from Bob around 6th grade. I remember how much I enjoyed those times. But Sarah and Jack didn't think too kindly of me and my mom. Sarah was always harsh with us. Bob was a humorous guy, usually cheerful and smiling. But when he stepped into the workshop, his attitude would change completely. He was a tough but kind mentor to me. He'd take my little hands and carefully teach me the beauty and wonder of each delicate candies. I loved making candies with Bob more than anything. But Sarah wasn't too thrilled about it. Honey, why are you teaching our precious recipes to an outsider? You should be teaching Jack instead. Then Jack, every bit the little rich boy, would puff out his cheeks. Ugh, no way. I'm gonna play video games with my friends. Jack had just started 1st grade, so you can't blame him. I was in 6th grade, so I could learn patiently. Anyway, Sarah hated me being in the workshop. Whenever Bob used to say with a straight face, Tom's talented, I trained him to be a pastry chef, Sarah would immediately frown. Then let him apprentice at another shop. Not here. What if this kid steals our recipes? He'd laugh off his wife's words. If he's that talented, he might even surpass me someday. I was so nervous listening on the side. To think he'd say something like that about me. I wanted Bob to acknowledge me someday. Sarah would openly scowl at this. "Stop it. We've decided Jack will inherit the business. Why do we have to do so much for the housekeeper's kid?" After these arguments, Sarah would always pout. "Teach Jack the trade." Bob would sigh and say, "When he's older," and says he wants to do it himself. Even in the upper grades, Jack never came to the workshop, so I was the only one learning by Bob's side. Yet Jack treated me like an enemy. Sarah must have been filling his head with all sorts of things. "Listen, don't you dare steal our recipes, you thief. Don't get cocky just 'cause Dad's nice to you. Get out of here, servant." I lost my cool and tried to grab Jack, but my mom, who happened to be there, came running. She clung to me and shouted, "Control yourself." I was in the junior high school, but 9-year-old Jack beat me black and blue with a stick. Mom apologized to me later, crying, as she treated my wounds, saying, "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." I couldn't help but cry too. Bob scolded Jack and apologized to us, but Sarah coldly said, "If you don't like it, leave." Time passed after that. Mom saved up money working at Butterfly Cottage and rented an apartment nearby. Finally, we moved out of the stay-in. Of course, she kept working, scurrying around like a little mouse. After graduating high school, I decided to work at Butterfly Cottage without hesitation. Actually, I'd already been working as an apprentice since high school. Bob really wanted me there, but Sarah was strongly against it. Come to think of it, Sarah was always harsh and strict with Bob, who was devoted to his work. She was probably the only daughter of the shop where Bob had trained. She must have felt like she did him a favor by marrying a craftsman like Bob. So she often looked down on Bob, even in public. Bob started working right after high school to become a pastry chef. But Sarah would snidely remark, "Our Jack is smarter than you, so we're sending him to college." Also, while Bob stayed up thinking of new creations, she'd go out and enjoy herself at concerts and tea parties. And while she was away, it was my mom who took care of Jack and Bob. Jack aside, Bob was deeply grateful to my mom. Sarah couldn't do housework, so before my mom came, Bob had been making all 3 meals himself. As for my mom, after I turned 30 and was recognized as a full-fledged pastry chef, she seemed relieved but started having health issues more often. "I won a gold medal in the competition. From now on, I'll let you take it easy, Mom." I smiled at Mom's words and she whispered, "I'm already happy enough." Eventually, she couldn't get out of bed, so I took her to the hospital, worried. The doctor said, "She doesn't have much time left. She must have pushed herself too hard." I was shocked. I cried in secret, but put on a smile for Mom. "How many days did we spend like that?" Mom said, "It's been a happy life," and passed away with a smile. Bob took care of almost everything for the funeral, and I managed to get through being the chief mourner while holding back tears. It was in the summer when I was 33, but as soon as the ceremony ended, Sarah came storming in. "Again? Why do we have to do so much for them? They're strangers, aren't they?" She lashed out at Bob. Maybe he got sick of everything because of this, but Bob eventually abandoned Butterfly Cottage. It's been 12 years now, and we still don't know his whereabouts. With the shop owner Bob gone, Sarah panicked. I was the only one who'd learned how to make candies step by step from Bob. Suddenly, with her husband gone, Sarah had no choice but to rely on me, despite wanting to find an excuse to kick me out. Meanwhile, Jack was leisurely enjoying college life. Despite being 28, he was still hanging around college, having taken time off and repeated years. At one point, Sarah decided, this is just too embarrassing, and sent him to study in Switzerland for a year. In the end, he didn't learn the language and spent his time partying. To make matters worse, her husband cut off all communication until now. Sarah's only son seemed useless to her. This made Sarah even more hysterical, especially when Jack would occasionally show up at the shop to beg Sarah for money. Then he'd see me making candies in the workshop and say things like, "I'm gonna spend all the money from the pastries and cakes you're slaving away to make. So you better work hard making those pastries. After all, I'm the heir to this shop." Eventually, I'll be bossing you around. Dunno where Dad went, but if I get serious, there won't be any place left for him. You just need to work as my hands and feet." Sarah would chime in, screeching, "That's right. You're only getting by because my husband taught you on a whim. We could have kicked you out, and it wouldn't have been strange at all. When my husband comes back, you're out of here." Sarah just couldn't stand the sight of me, but Jack was different. "Mom, don't do that. I'm not kicking this guy out. I'm gonna teach this thorn in my side the difference in our status." She thought for a bit, then nodded. "I see. Then do as you like, Jack. But we'll have him sign an agreement that he absolutely won't make candies if he leaves here. We can't have our recipes leaking to other shops." Even with these humiliating conditions, all I could say was, "Yes." Jack finally graduated college. Everyone was amazed or shocked that he was 29. After that, at Sarah's insistence, he became the second-generation shop owner. I was 35, married to a woman I met through my mountain climbing hobby, and had built a modest family. And I kept working at Butterfly Cottage. I was waiting for Bob to come back. Meanwhile, Sarah found herself in a dilemma. She'd hoped that with her son Jack becoming the second-generation shop owner, she wouldn't have to work so hard in place of her missing husband, but it wasn't what she'd imagined. And another thing, she still found it unpleasant to see my face and wanted to find some reason to kick me out. But Jack stubbornly insisted, "I'm keeping Tom at the shop so I can work him to the bone." What's more, Jack, who she'd been counting on, hadn't really studied anything about pastry and cake. And he couldn't manage the business either. What on earth had he been doing in college? Her frustrations just kept piling up. Jack assumed the position of proprietor, but he was still the same irresponsible Jack, seldom fulfilling his duties as shop owner. In the end, Sarah's days continued much the same as before, keeping the books, overseeing ingredient purchases, single-handedly managing relationships with big customers. She couldn't catch a break at all. As for the candies themselves, nothing would get done without my involvement. The other pastry chef just didn't have the skill to maintain the quality. Sarah's stress just kept building up. I was so looking forward to Jack graduating college, but that kid hardly ever comes to the shop. Why? She ordered Yasmin, a shop employee, to follow Jack. The result? Turns out he was hanging out at a nightclub that had opened near the station. He had a favorite girl there, Tiffany, and was obsessed with going to see her. "I'm the CEO of an established sweet shop. If you marry me, I'll make sure you live in luxury. So let's get together, Tiffany." Tiffany laughed him off. The other women didn't take him seriously either. But Jack was dead serious. When Sarah found out about this, she was so angry you could see steam coming out of her ears. "What on earth are you doing, neglecting the shop like this?" Jack didn't back down. "You should be grateful I took over the shop. The profits are mine." This went on for 12 years. It's a wonder the shop didn't go under. We employees desperately kept it afloat. All this time, we still didn't know Bob's whereabouts. This shop held memories of my mom. And to not disappoint Bob, my mentor, I was determined to protect this shop. Then one day, Jack returned from the casino. Looks like he lost again. He was still going to his beloved nightclub too. Tiffany had gone back to her country, but now he was crazy about a girl named Jasmine. Jack was already 40. Sarah wanted him to settle down, but Jack just scoffed. Finally, she reached her limit. "Tom, I've let you work here all this time because you acted like my husband's apprentice, but I don't want to see your face anymore." Seems like her frustration with Jack was being taken out on me. While I was stunned, she went on. "In the end, sales-wise, my husband's original candies are still on top. Even if those sell, it's not your achievement." She says that, but I'm the only one at Butterfly Cottage who can recreate Bob's flavors. But then Jack jumped on the bandwagon. "You're fired, you useless bum with zero sales." "Well said, Jack. We can finally get rid of this good-for-nothing." I was shocked. Sarah sighed. Jack was supposed to want to work me to the bone. Yet they both looked relieved. "But it's true. I couldn't match the sales of the black sesame cracklin' top cream puffs and pastry snails with basil pesto, grana padano, and pine nuts that Bob had created. I gritted my teeth, wishing I could have put out my own original candies. Actually, I had pitched ideas a few times. But Sarah would say, "This isn't your shop. Don't get cocky," and brush me off. So it was decided that I'd be kicked out of Butterfly Cottage. Well then, as I said before, you'll sign an agreement, promising you'll never make candies again, got it? Sarah smiled like a witch. Reluctantly, I signed the document. Now, after I left Butterfly Cottage, Jack apparently shared his ideas with the employees and his mother. You know, cream puffs are old-fashioned, not stylish at all. Plus, they're only $1.80 each. Too cheap. I've had a revelation. We'll renovate the shop and add a cafe corner. Sarah was surprised. A cafe corner in this shop? Jack continued confidently. Look, those famous coffee chains are raking it in, right? It's not the coffee, but drinks like fraps and smoothies that are popular and expensive. They charge extra for caramel, vanilla sweet cream foam, or crunch, which adds $8, $10 to the regular coffee price. Instead of selling these $1.80 cream puffs, let's get people to pay $14 for a drink. $14 for one drink is a gold mine. Sarah agreed enthusiastically, saying, "That sounds stylish, doesn't it?" and encouraged him. They didn't care that the employees were at a loss about how to make candies without me. They decided to renovate the shop right away. As for me, I was at a loss, having been stripped of my only livelihood as a pastry chef. But then, something unexpected happened. While playing with my only son, Keith, at home, my wife called me. "There's a visitor for you," she said, and I put down the toy car. The person my wife showed and started with, "I heard you left your job." "Turns out," he said, "actually, we're planning to open a sweet shop called Cozy Place 2 doors down from Butterfly Cottage, and we'd love for you to join us." He was scouting me. This person was the owner of Cozy Place. My wife brought tea, smiling. Cozy Place was a creative pasty and cake shop that had been putting out many hit products lately, often featured on TV and the internet. This was an incredible opportunity. But I honestly told the owner about the agreement I'd signed with Butterfly Cottage. At first, he frowned, but after a while he said, "I have a good idea," and whispered it to me. Suddenly, it felt like the fog had lifted. "That's great. Let's do it. Please, I'd be honored to work with you." I joined Cozy Place, Butterfly Cottage's new rival, and immediately developed a new recipe. It's called Monaca for coffee. It's a treat designed to complement coffee, featuring hazelnut praline paste and chantilly cream inside a Monaca rice flour wafer. When the owner tried it, his eyes widened and he said, "This is delicious." The other employees loved it too, so they decided to feature this new product, Monaca for coffee, for their grand opening. The showdown between the rapidly advancing Cozy Place and the newly renovated Butterfly Cottage with its cafe corner was about to begin. As it turned out, Monaca for coffee was a huge hit. Customers kept coming to buy it, praising how well it went with coffee. Long lines in front of the shop became the norm. Meanwhile, at Butterfly Cottage, they set up a flashy cafe corner and put up signs and banners for fruit fraps and fruit smoothies, waiting for customers. People walking by were surprised at Butterfly Cottage's transformation, saying, "Huh, did the candy shop close?" Moreover, customers who came to the shop still asked for the signature black sesame cracklin' top cream puffs and pastry snails with basil pesto, grana padano, and pine nuts. When they tried to take them to go, Jack would suggest, "We've added a cafe corner. You can eat in the shop now." Customers would enter out of curiosity. But if the staff didn't say anything, they'd just eat their sweets and leave. So Sarah and Jack would call out, "How about a drink too?" When shown the menu, customers all looked puzzled. "What's a frap? Does it go well with the black sesame cream puff?" they'd ask, leaving Jack flustered. "You'll understand if you try it. It's cold, sweet, and delicious. Like drinkable shaved ice." Without really listening to the explanation, customers would say the most sensible thing. No, no, jasmine tea goes with cream puff. Others would complain, why isn't there tea? If there's no tea or matcha, I'll take it home and eat it there. You see, this cafe only had two types of drinks, expensive fraps or smoothies. Fraps don't go well with black sesame cream puff or pastry with basil pesto, grana padano, and pine nuts, but Jack, blinded by profit, forced this limited menu. Furthermore, they stopped offering coffee and tea, which customers seeking cream puffs and pastry with basil pesto might have chosen, because they couldn't charge $14 for those. Customers who came for the black sesame cream puffs were disappointed. Fine, I'll just have tea with it at home, they'd say, leaving with their candies. What's going on? On social media, all the stylish young people are drinking smoothies. Sarah grumbled under her breath. Jack didn't lose heart. Just wait. I researched all the trends online and packed them in. Young folks are bound to come. His eyes shone with expectation. But did they actually attract the young customers they were targeting? They renovated aiming to be a glitzy, trendy cafe that'd be popular online with teens and 20-somethings. That was the plan, but for some reason, young people just walked on by. Why aren't they coming in? What's wrong? Don't young people like flashy fraps? We've got fruit toppings and smoothies too. Jack was getting anxious. The employees knew why. The answer was simple. The interior design was catastrophically bad. Originally, Bob had chosen wallpaper with a calm atmosphere and placed warm handmade paper decorations, creating an exquisite space. But in Sarah's hands, it became awful. Social media appeal is important. All the young kids are on social media. She spoke proudly, but the employees had to stifle their laughter. It's true that looking at trendy social media for reference was the right idea, but this renovation was so aesthetically off that even the interior designers asked, "Are you sure about this?" The inside was flashy gold, nothing like a traditional pastry and cake shop. This was purely Sarah's taste. I see. So Mom's image was like the gold princess castle at Las Vegas, huh? Surprisingly, Jack didn't seem to mind. That's right. All the popular people on social media get likes for their experiences at Sphere in Las Vegas. At first, young people avoided this unique candy shop, but soon rumors spread about the weird store. Then it became trendy to take photos of the bizarrely bad taste from outside the cafe. Apparently, they'd share these photos in group chats and laugh about it. It was like a morbid curiosity. So young people did come in a way, but they didn't buy even a single pastry, let alone a frap. Plus, complaints flooded in from regular customers. Why'd you make it so gaudy? It'll make the pastry taste bad. The harshest criticism came from online reviews. The signature black sesame cracklin' top cream puffs and pastry snails with basil pesto, grana padano, and pine nuts taste different. Or rather, the quality has dropped. Won't buy again. Just like that, Butterfly Cottage's sales plummeted. For both style and taste in pastry and cakes, Cozy Place is the way to go. Saying this, even the regulars who used to buy candies for special occasions from Butterfly Cottage didn't return. It's been a month since I quit Butterfly Cottage. Cozy Place is thriving again today. There's a line of customers waiting for Monaca for coffee, stretching to the front of Butterfly Cottage. The owner was in such a good mood, he joked. Maybe I'll give everyone a bonus for working so hard. That's when Jack showed up. I tensed up instinctively. But to my surprise, Jack came to me asking for my help and begged, "Please come back." I was confused by this shocking turn of events. I couldn't find words. Please, Butterfly Cottage is in trouble. All their past mistreatment flashed through my mind. I shot back, as if for revenge. Can you pay me 20 times more? Jack was speechless. His face turned pale. For a moment he was overwhelmed, but he quickly retorted. Huh? What are you talking about? You broke your promise, didn't you? Why are you working at a candy shop? You signed an agreement with Mom saying you wouldn't make candies anymore. I'll sue you for breach of contract. He came at me, breathing heavily, but I kept my cool. Well, I'm not making candies. I work here as a confectionery coordinator. For example, I came up with the idea for the Monaca for coffee, and I give advice on adjusting the flavors. So the craftsman here made everything. I didn't do any of the work myself. Jack grimaced, making an ugh sound. He clicked his tongue in frustration, having been outmaneuvered. Just then, a woman came running towards us. It was Yasmin. She was a long-time employee of Butterfly Cottage and had always been kind to my mother. Until last month, she was my colleague working together at Butterfly Cottage. Out of breath, she shouted to us, "Big news! The former owner, Bob, is at the corner over there. He's finally come back." "What?" Jack suddenly perked up, learning that his father, whom he hadn't seen since he was 28, had finally returned. "Dad's coming back. I don't need you anymore. Watch, I'll crush Cozy Place in no time. I'll laugh at your crying face." Triumphantly, he said, "I'm going back to the shop. Gotta get Dad to make some new products right away," and left quickly as if nothing had happened earlier. I wanted to see Bob too, but I couldn't show my face at Butterfly Cottage. I watched Jack's back with a frustrated feeling. Yasmin, who had been silently listening to our exchange the whole time, suddenly muttered something unbelievable. "The former owner I just met, he really does look just like you." "Huh?" I couldn't understand what she meant. Lowering her voice, Yasmin revealed a shocking secret to